Hi, this is Emerald and welcome to the Diamond Net, and today I'm going to talk to you about why you shouldn't seek enlightenment. So if you're familiar with my videos, the topic that I'm covering in this video might seem a little bit unusual, considering the fact that I'm seeking enlightenment personally. But my recommendation is to not seek enlightenment, but instead to seek truth. The reason why I say this is because if you come up with the idea of enlightenment and you think of enlightenment as some idea in the future that you have to match up to, it's going to really kind of taint your motives for actually seeking it. And the only way to really get there is to see reality as it is, because they say that you are already enlightened, you just don't realize it. And so there must be some truth that you're not picking up on if you are not yet enlightened. So if you're seeking enlightenment, you have to seek whatever is true beyond all assumptions, beliefs, and ideas. And in other videos, I talk a lot about the importance of separating ideas and beliefs and frameworks from your actual experience of reality. Now, I was told the other day by Rally from Naked Reality, who I'm actually doing a collaboration video with filming tonight. I mean, we'll have already filmed when this video goes up, but he told me about an Adyashanti quote that I really liked, that only the phonies don't become enlightened. And basically, people can have a host of different ulterior motives to wanting enlightenment, and actually trying to seek truth instead helps to cut down on this a bit. So one of the reasons why I think that I haven't basically had the awakening referred to as enlightenment is because my motives are tainted by two different things. Now, the primary way is because since I had two awakening experiences 7 years ago, I got quite attached to that. And they were really the most blissful and amazing and beautiful experiences of my life. Bar none. And it was always this thought, I need to get back to that state. I need to somehow replicate that state. So the problem here is that I'm not actually seeking what's true. I'm seeking to feel good. I'm seeking to replicate something in the past. I'm going toward an idea. And if you're going toward an idea and a memory, that's going to be 180 degrees in the wrong direction. Now, the second way my motives are tainted are because I want still to be recognized in some way that's different from other people, because on some level I still believe in the idea of significance and somebody being superior and inferior. And I think that somehow my being enlightened would make me somehow superior and I would get to feel good about myself. So this is another common tainted motive that I find that a lot of people have. It's kind of this thought that, oh, I'm going to improve myself through enlightenment. Another mindset that I have is, oh, I want enlightenment because I want to end my suffering. I want to feel good. I don't want to be dealing with this struggle or that struggle. So there's this desire to kind of get rid of these problem mindsets. And again, that's another idea in the future. Like, I'm wanting something that's not yet here. Yet enlightenment is always right there for you. And so necessarily, if you're going towards some desired end, then you're going away from what's right here, right now. You're not accepting what's in your reality at present. Since enlightenment entails unconditional love, it has to be unconditional love of all things in reality. So there's this idea that you're seeking enlightenment, and there's some enlightenment out there to be had and to be sought. But the problem here is that is placing enlightenment away from you. What enlightenment really is to realize your nature. And anything that's out here in the perceptual world, or anything that's other than your own awareness, is going absolutely in 100 miles away from where you're supposed to be going. Now, many people, when they seek enlightenment, they have an idea in the back of their mind. Maybe it's conscious, maybe it's unconscious, but they have an idea that they know what enlightenment is. Maybe they have listened to a lot of spiritual teachers who are enlightened talk about enlightenment. Or maybe they have some other kind of idea picked up from different sources. And no matter how accurate that idea about enlightenment is, the idea is necessarily not the shift itself. It's kind of like if you try to describe the color blue to somebody who's never seen before. It just cannot be communicated in words. The way that being a spiritual teacher who's seeking or who's helping people seek enlightenment, the way to measure the success of that teacher is if they bring them the furthest point that the mind can travel. But the mind can't travel to enlightenment. The mind can't realize enlightenment. What enlightenment is a realization and a being what you already are. And so necessarily any idea of enlightenment is not the shift of enlightenment itself. So let's say you have the idea that enlightenment is some blissful state. And so you sit down and you decide to do some self-inquiry or some meditation, and you want to get in touch with what's true in your reality right now. And all the time in the background you have this, oh, am I enlightened yet? Oh wait, is this enlightenment? Oh, is that enlightenment? Oh, maybe this thing over here. Oh, I wonder if this is a sign of enlightenment. And all the while, that puts your blinders on to what's actually in your reality. It makes you miss it because you have this idea placed over reality that you're trying to find. So trying to seek enlightenment in this way, like constantly checking your experience or wondering, am I enlightened? Is this a sign of enlightenment? It would be just as silly as if a scientist were to do some kind of science experiment that was open-ended, but to expect a particular result to come from it. So let's say that they had two chemicals that they wanted to see if there was some kind of reaction that would happen, and then no reaction happened when you put the two chemicals together. The scientists might think, oh no, this was a failed experiment. But no, it wasn't. That just wasn't the way it worked out. That wasn't what was true. Nonetheless, the observation occurred, and nonetheless, they saw what was true, even if it didn't match up to their ideas of how they wanted things to go. There's also a really nice metaphor that I read in a book one time, that if you go into a garden and you go in looking for a diamond ring that someone dropped, and you search the whole place for that, then you're going to totally miss the garden. So if you're using seeking enlightenment to get away from reality, to solve your problems, to fix this, or to go toward some desired state that you'd rather be in, or to get some kind of recognition, then this is sort of like going into that garden with the idea that you're going to find a diamond ring there. You're already in the garden. The garden is the diamond ring. The garden is where you're supposed to be. That's enlightenment. It's waking up to what's already there. But when I say to seek truth, what is that exactly? That seems a little bit abstract in itself. So I want to kind of flesh out this idea of what it means to get in touch with what's true. What's true is that right now you have experiences, and then you have something that perceives those experiences. So let's call that awareness. Awareness is the thing that perceives the experiences. So if we look at what it is that awareness is experiencing, we have our five senses, and we have our thoughts. We have all of the content that occurs in each one of those modes of perception. So let's take a look at our visual perception. Now, this is one like that I have explored into a lot, being a painter, and for painting in the past. And when I first started to learn how to paint when I was 15, this is really what I consider to be my first venture into truth. So when you're learning to draw or learning to paint, if your teacher is good at teaching realistic painting or drawing, what they're going to tell you is not to draw your ideas of how things are. So for example, if you're trying to paint my face, don't think, oh yeah, that's Emerald, she's got brown eyes, she's got brown hair, that's her nose, that's her eyes, you know, and there are all these thought labels put over what you would be painting of my face. But the reality of the matter is that you're not even looking at a picture of my face. What you're looking at is a flat screen of shapes imbued with colors. And so once you really realize that, painting realistically becomes a lot easier. It is because you're in touch with what's true and not your ideas about what's true. So like, let's say for example, oh, you want to paint my eye here, and you say, okay, well, eyes, they kind of look like footballs a little bit, and they have a little circly thing in the middle, another little circly thing in that, and then the eyebrows kind of a little hoopy thing, and then I don't know how to draw noses, that top part's a little hard, so just draw the nose as a circle. you know, and this will give a basic representation of a person symbolically, but you won't be painting it realistically. If you want to paint realistically, you have to get in touch with what's actually true in the situation. So now I can't see my eyes, but what you'll notice is that the whites of my eyes have a particular shape. The other part of the whites of my eyes have a particular shape. Maybe I have some shadows occurring in and around my face, and there are different colors playing out. It's not just like flat tan or pale color or whatever you would call it. You know, there's actually lots of different colors occurring in there. So all this is a plane of shapes imbued with colors, and there's nothing actually even that directly differentiates me from the background. So we tend to think of the world as being a place with these separate objects. But if we look at our visual perceptions, what we just have is a bunch of shapes imbued with colors. And so it's only our thoughts about things that actually differentiates those things. So I would say that we have the idea world that we're used to being in, like our thoughts of, oh, that's a nose, that's an eye, this is hair, that's emerald sitting there, I'm looking at a computer screen, I'm looking at my shoe on the ground, here's this, here's that. Really, all of those things are just labels. There's no shoe in your experience. There's no emerald in your experience. It's just colors. And so when I realized this truth, not looking for truth particularly, but just learning how to paint, it was like a mini enlightenment for the eyes. It was like I finally saw reality for the first time in my entire life that I could remember. It was like, oh, this whole time I've been looking at the world and I haven't been seeing a damn thing. I've been seeing my ideas of things placed over things, but I wasn't actually seeing the real stuff. So let's go to the next perception, sound. So sound works in a similar way to sight. Now, I don't have any particular firsthand experience with learning sound in the same way that I learned how to paint and learned my visual field, which is basically, visual field is all flat, but sound is likewise not quite in the same way that it seems, because when we hear sounds, like let's say that we hear talking, we automatically relate it symbolically to what we know. So let's say that we're listening to someone speak in a foreign language that we're not familiar with. You know, there's no meaning that can be derived from that at all. So all it sounds like to us is just sounds. You know, well, we have the human vocal tonations, and we might have body language to kind of maybe hint to what the person's saying. But ultimately, what we hear is just blah, 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 you know. But if we think about our own language, our mother tongue, what we hear is we can't help but hear it as what we think it means. So let's say if I say the dog ran outside, if you speak English, you can't unhear the dog ran outside. You can't go back to hearing me speak in gibberish language because you know the symbolic meanings in English. And so essentially, if you are going to try to do some kind of meditation on sound, you would have to maybe try to take away your assumptions and your ideas and beliefs about what particular sounds mean. All right, let's go to the next mode of perception, which is sensation or touch. Now, touch is an interesting one to get in touch with as it actually is, because essentially we get into this idea where the sensations and our visual field gets linked because we're used to seeing things and then interacting and feeling ourselves in space. And so we're used to interpreting the visual field as being three-dimensional, but the visual field is not three-dimensional. It is completely flat. It's flat as a screen. And the sensory world, I don't know if that one has dimension or not. I'm wondering if it does, but I don't know if that's just an understanding based on being related back to the visual field, which I also interpret as three-dimensional. So basically, let's say that I have my hand pressed up against my face here. If I focus on just the sensation, you know, I might, well, if I don't focus on just the sensation, I might get this image in my head of how this looks. I might imagine myself touching my hand to my face. But that's not what's actually happening in reality. What's happening in reality is that I perceive and interpret that that's what's happening. What's really happening is that there's just a sensation there. There's just a feeling. And if you can focus on just that feeling and also remove your idea about what's happening or what's causing that sensation, or to find out where are my sensations actually occurring in relation to my other senses. How are all of these senses linked together, even though they seem to be, upon closer inquiry, so far apart? All right, so let's look at smell and taste together, because those two are kind of similar. Now, let's say that you're tasting something like a banana. You're used to the taste of bananas and you have the texture to go along with it, but then you have this taste. You think, like, what is this taste? Is the taste really just a sensation? Is it like another, like, tactile sensation? Or what is it? How is that occurring for me? And just try to get the idea of banana outside of your mind. Think about if your sense of taste and your sense of smell weren't attached to any of the other senses at all. What would that be like to just taste? What would that be like to just smell? So with all of these examples, with all these 5 senses, what you're doing is you're taking them in, but you're separating your thoughts and assumptions and beliefs from what's going on. So let's take a look at the 6th perception that we have, which is thought. So thoughts occur in our mind, and they kind of pop up from seemingly nowhere, and they kind of brandish themselves as sort of ghost versions of our 5 senses. So we might hear a voice, but like a little fuzzy, ghosty voice. Or we might see an image, but it isn't quite an image that you can focus upon. It just kind of is a hazy image. Or we might taste something, smell something, or feel something, but it's not a real feeling, taste, or smell. It has that hazy quality to it. So it's basically like it exists for the purpose that we might conceptualize things, that we might plan things. It's for the purpose of interfacing with reality in a successful way and being able to drive us from one place to another. However, there are a lot of problems that come up with thought. So one of the main problems is that we start to identify with our thoughts. We think that our thoughts are us. We think that we have this sense of self internal to us, and that this internal voice that is our thought is our internal voice. And we become very personal about it, and we get very tangled up within our ideas and our intellectualizations. So notice that you are not your thoughts. Like, your thoughts aren't perceiving anything. Also, notice that you don't really have control over your thoughts, to the point where you can't even predict the next thought that comes up. Like, try to predict the next thought. Okay, here's one. Fire hydrant. Shih Tzu. I guess that's related because dogs and fire hydrants, whatever. Banana. I said banana earlier. But either way, I didn't know that those thoughts were going to come up before they actually did. You know, they just sprung into my mind. They were random. So when you notice this about thoughts, you're a lot less likely to get caught up in the thought itself. And you can back up, and you can even start to notice thoughts without thoughts interfering with it. So let's take, for example, our image of just shapes imbued with colors. We can just see a thought as a thought. Now, what you'll notice is that there's this sensation that comes along with a thought. Like, you can feel it, you can hear it, you can sense it in some way. And so you just focus on that. Notice what's going on with it, but don't think that there's any truth to what the thought has to say. So the way to experience what's true is to stop trying to conceptualize things, to stop trying to figure things out, to stop trying to place this or that here or there, to stop trying to contemplate on things, and just allow whatever's in reality to be. And don't question, oh, am I perceiving this? Oh, am I not aware of this? How can I become more aware of this? Because there's like this striving mentally when you're trying to get focused on what's in reality, like, oh, I'm trying to organize this and trying to wrap my mind around it, but that's exactly what you're trying not to do. You're trying to remove the mind. So notice when you're doing that. Notice when you're trying to sort of wrap the mind around reality, and then just notice it and then drop it if you can. And if you can't, just notice that as something that occurs within your perceptual awareness. Understand that no matter how much the thoughts struggle, it doesn't mean you're struggling, your thoughts are struggling, and you can always become aware of that. Because the other part of this whole thing is you have perception and then you have the perceiver. And the perceiver's awareness is always whole. So notice that perceptions are always changing. You've never perceived the same thing that you've ever perceived before. From moment to moment, every experience you have of your visual field, of your auditory field, of your sensational field, of anything within your thoughts or any sense modality is 100% different from what it was a moment ago, and the moment before that, and the moment before that. Now, it might be a slight difference, but every moment is unique. However, there is one thing that stays constant in the entirety of your experience, and that is your awareness. I was watching the other day a Rupert Spira video, and he gave a really great metaphor. And he said that if the main character in a movie is looking around in the movie for the screen, then they're never going to find it because they're already on the screen. They're projected upon the screen. And so the screen can't be found anywhere within the contents of the movie, because what you're looking for is the medium from which your perceptions arise and the medium with which they're projected upon. So in order to become aware of awareness itself, that becomes sort of the task of becoming enlightened, or at least so I've heard from various teachers of non-duality. So basically what you'll want to do is you're going to want to turn your awareness in on itself. And you want to look for what is perceiving. So you notice, okay, I have all of these visual perceptions, all of these audio perceptions, all these sensory perceptions, and I have my thoughts. What's perceiving all of those things? What's the one constant thing in my experience that's never changed? So don't look for enlightenment, look for what perceives everything in your field of awareness. And that is what your true nature is. And enlightenment is the realization of your true nature. So in order to look for the perceiver, you might try self-inquiry, where you're asking, what's perceiving this? Who am I? Looking around for the individual self within you. Or you might just do the neti-neti method, which means not this, not that. And that means that if you can perceive it, it isn't you. And so basically you scan all of your sense perceptions and you scan your thoughts looking for a sense of self. And essentially you won't be able to find it. And then you start looking for awareness. What is awareness? How do I become aware of what's aware? Alright, so that's all I have for you for today. I hope that you enjoyed the video. If you did, go ahead, click the like button below and subscribe. Also, leave me a comment down below letting me know what you thought. And if you have any friends that you think might enjoy the video, please share it out to them. And other than that, that's all I have for you today. And until next time, keep becoming more you.